In this video, we're going to look at Excel's VLOOKUP function and how it can be used to categorize data. This is not the most typical use of this function, but it is exactly what it was designed to do, and it does it very efficiently. Coming back to our scenario, Zara has convinced the supplier to simplify their late charge penalties. So they're now going to be the same for Melbourne and Sydney, and instead they're going to be charged on a series of flat rates depending on how overdue the invoice is. So Zara's noted them in the workbook, and you'll see 1 to 4 days gets charged at $2.25, whereas 5 to 9 days will be charged at $5.50. So she now needs a new calculation that will look up the appropriate penalty. In the previous video, we saw how we could solve this problem using a nested if. We would, however, need 4 ifs. This would create a very complex and inefficient formula. The clue is in the language. We're not saying if it's this, do that. We're actually saying look up the appropriate penalty. And where that's the case, you're better off using a lookup function. One of the most widely used lookup functions is the VLOOKUP, and it is perfectly suited to this type of problem. It does have quite a few arguments though, so we're going to break it down with a very simple analogy. What does the VLOOKUP do? Well, imagine that you have somebody's name, but you need their telephone number. You will go to the telephone directory, you will find their name, and then you will be able to get their telephone number. That process of looking it up, the VLOOKUP automates it. So when we use the VLOOKUP, the first argument it's going to ask for is a lookup value. That's the piece of information you know, the person's name. The second argument is where you're going to go and look it up, the telephone directory. The third argument says, okay, when you find the match, if there's more than one piece of corresponding information, which one do you want to get back? So if there was a telephone number and an address, we need to specify which one we wanted. And finally, we have the option to choose whether we want to do a range lookup, that's looking within a range, or an exact match. In this first example, we're going to be doing a range lookup because we're not trying to find an exact value. We're trying to find something between 1 and 5 or between 5 and 10. For example. Let's see how it works. So clicking back into 05, I'm going to type equals and VL. Now the V is for vertical, so you can only use the VLOOKUP if your lookup data is organized vertically. If it isn't, you'll have to use HLOOKUP. Now I'm going to press Tab, and my lookup value, the thing I know, is my overdue by. So I'm going to click onto that and type comma. My lookup table is my new penalties table, and I'm going to select the whole table, but not the heading. And now really important, we haven't named this range, so I'm going to have to press F4 to lock it in place and make sure you get both sets of dollars. Now I'm going to type another comma. The VLOOKUP is going to always match our lookup value into our first column of our lookup data. But it's quite possible there will be multiple columns within the table, so we need to specify which column has the value we want to get back. And in this case, it's the second column in our lookup array, so we're going to type a 2. VLOOKUPs are by default range lookups, so if you're doing a range lookup, you don't have to worry about the last argument. We can just close our brackets and press Enter. And there are all of our late charges corrected. So the VLOOKUP function can easily be used for categorizing data. This could be working out which tax bracket somebody fell into or grading your student results. The only thing to bear in mind is that your lookup data must be sequenced smallest to largest. In the next video, we're going to look at a more typical use of the VLOOKUP, which is when we need to match data. So keep watching.